said quite often, well, I hear it quite often, when people say they're too much horse for me. How much of our horse's behaviour that we don't want do we feel is their fault? Are we willing to own or take responsibility for our part? And I don't just mean our part today with the horse that I have in front of me, but I mean the horse's life that's been through a number of hands. Are we able to take responsibility for the reactions that they're having in a domestic environment? I'm a great believer that we should be studying horses in the wild, or feral horses, because there's very few wild horses now. And I'm particularly lucky that I live with a herd of now critically endangered Spanish Mustangs who have really close roots to their wild, if you like, to their natural state of horse. In a domestic environment, they are the closest you're going to get to be able to study some true horse behaviour, feral horse behaviour within a domestic environment. Their conversation is pure, it's raw, it's educational, it's eye-opening. They're not institutionalised, they never have been. That's not to say that some Spanish Mustangs out there aren't institutionalised and domesticated. They are, but the herd that I have the privilege to be their caretaker are a herd of horses that have had a relatively natural life. Lived in herds, lived out, barefoot, plenty of freedom and forage and friends, the whole 3Fs. So to be able to study them on a daily basis and interact with them on a daily basis really has developed me as a mentor, coach with the humans and horses that are in my care that are outside of my herd. And to be able to apply some of those conversations and show the conversation to the humans has been an immense privilege and an immense advantage, really, in the way that I'm able to deliver learning to the humans, the human element within my coaching program. But with that said, there is an element of adaptation, because what we cannot do is look at the feral horse model, the wild horse model, and apply it to our domestic horses. The foundations of a horse are a horse. Fight, flight, freeze. They all have that. Underlying, bubbling on the surface, the need to survive. They are prey animals, and as a prey animal, their nature will always be about survival. So consider this: every time they do something that has behaviour, that involves behaviour that we find perplexing or unwanted, if we look at it through the lens of a prey animal and see it as a reaction for survival, we may just be a little bit more forgiving to actually what they're doing, and consider what came before that reaction. What provoked it? What did we do? Because 9 times out of 10, if it's something to do with a human and a horse, it is the human's delivery of the question, of the ask, physically, emotionally, mentally, that creates the reaction in them that puts them on the edge of fight or flight, And depending on how institutionalized they are or how they are wired, freeze. But each one of those is about survival in the end. I'm going to shut down, freeze, because I cannot cope with what is happening around me, and it's the way I'm going to survive. I will flight, I'm going to run away because I need to survive. I am going to fight because I need to survive. That's it. So something happened today which was really, really interesting. And it completely underlines what I'm saying. Getting on a horse, the horse tenses. It could have been a fly, it could have been something the human did, it might not have been. But there was tension and anxiety from the horse. Asking the horse to take a few steps, the horse takes a few steps, stamps, this is why I think it might have been a fly, and starts to trot. So that is the first scenario of survival. I need to move because I need to get rid of this fly that's biting me. Survival might be a bit of a dramatic word, but in the end, that's the essence. That caused a ripple effect for the rider to tense, and when you tense, your muscles tense up and get hard. Therefore, the lower body is clamping down and asking the horse for more movement. The horse goes into a faster trot. The rider tenses more and grabs the reins, tightens on the reins, trying to put the brakes on. So from waist down, they're saying go, and from the waist up, they're saying stop. Confusion. The horse's nature kicks in, and all of a sudden all they know is that they have a predator being on their backs that's clamping down. They need to get them off, they need to survive, and bucking and bronking, the testing how they can possibly expel this danger. And then what do? Well, I just want to make a very important point that this is not what happened. Normally, what do? Let's put it that way. We punish them. We beat on them, or we call them names, or we give the whole of the responsibility for all of the previous actions that we didn't want onto them. When even the beginning of it could have been actually a fly. It could have been anything. And this is what happened, I think, today. So all the onus of being good, bad or indifferent is on the horse, and we take no responsibility whatsoever for our actions, which in fact in this instance was perpetuating the situation by confusing the horse with dual instructions. Once the horse had settled, I took an instinctual decision to ask the rider to dismount and bring the horse into relaxation without the rider. And I spent the next half an hour or so helping her through the stress and anxiety that had built up. So one of the first questions was, I got off, therefore haven't I taught her that she can do that and then I get off? Well, what if what you've actually done is not teach her a habit or reinforce the habit that if I bronk, my rider removes himself? What if what we've done is said, I heard you, I got off to give you relief, so in the future I will do the same. So you're reinforcing with her the fact that you're listening and she feels heard. The more you listen, the less likely they will ask you difficult questions, because they know if they have to, you're going to listen to them. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyway, the other thing as well, which was again instinctual and I found really interesting, is she was saddled and bridled, and I was asking her to relax, and I could see she was struggling. So I took the bridle off. She had a head collar. The release from the bridle, the yawning and stretching, was enormous. So this was a really important lesson. If you've got a horse saddled and bridled that's under tension and stress, showing anxiety, and you're offering space for them to relax, it could be that they're not going to ever get to the point of full relaxation while tacked. Some may, but the horse I was working with this morning definitely wasn't going to. This is not an anti-bridle conversation. This is to say, be mindful that for full release, sometimes horses need full release, as in released of contraptions, aids. And that makes sense, really. It makes sense. But it was a very impactful visual to see it happen. And it's certainly something that I will be reminding both myself and my students of in the future. Now, that's not to say that every time something happens you've got to completely strip the horse down. No, that's not it. You've got to find some instinctual levels of conversation within yourself to know at a gut level that's the right time to do that. And another time it's not. It doesn't. It's going to have less impact, and the horse can find the release without you having to do that. But if they are struggling, if they are really struggling to find the release while tacked up, release them from it. Release them from it. Give them the opportunity to find relaxation with some freedom. And again, I don't think I'm going to have taught her that if I remain tense, if I hold on to all this tension, they'll remove my bridle. Nobody wants to hold on to tension like that. Nobody. Anybody that suffers from anxiety knows that when they start to relax, the release is enormous. And they also know, and I'm speaking from experience here, that when you can do XYZ that created tension previously but now doesn't create tension, the feeling of satisfaction and progress within yourself is enormous. Why would they not feel that? Of course there's massive differences, but we are both mammals, so there must be similarities too. You cannot remove the mammalian part of the equation. There are things that we have in common that we disregard. And I don't think that makes sense either. It's a very odd situation when you find yourself saying to a student, what does your gut tell you? It's a question I ask most of my students at some point. What does your gut tell you? And I guarantee when they say whatever it is, 9 times out of 10 they're right. And I would challenge every coach to do that. Because when we step into the arena, into the round pen with our students, they look at us assuming that we know everything, that we can solve all their problems, that we can fix their horse, which, by the way, I fix no horses, and I've never fixed a horse in my life. But that's a subject for another day. But allow your students the freedom to express themselves. Allow your students the freedom to discover and search for answers. Learning that they discover lasts longer than learning that you give them. What is that saying? Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for life. It's the same with learning. Show them how to and allow them to discover, and they will never forget. Tell them what to. Well, you'll be telling them again, I guarantee that. Well, I hope you found these musings useful. Truck talks. And I'll leave you with that. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day.